They can never keep me down, I'm going. And if I ever fail, just know I'll go again. I never quit, cause I know that every loss may lead to another win.
What's going on, everyone? Episode 50 of Locker Talk Live. That's right, the Big 5-0, halfway to 100. Of course, I am your host, Josh, or as people call me, Whack, and I'm joined today with Houston's own Scotty T and Matt Malatesta. Go ahead and unmute yourself. So I'm just going to throw that out there now, just in case before I bring you in. Let's start with Scott. Scott, it's been a minute since you've been on the show, man. How you doing?
Josh, I'm doing good, man. It's glad to be back. I'm ready to talk some football. There's been a lot of action out there. Hey, and also, big news here in Houston. The Houston Astros in the World Series. Game 1 tonight. So pumped. H-Town takeover. A lot exciting buzz in the city of Houston right now. And then ready to talk some football. I'll throw it up to Malatesta. What's going on, Mala? How you doing?
I think you're still on mute there, Matt. On.
There we go. Who are these Astros y'all keep making mention of? Are they a thing in Houston? I don't know.
Yeah, man, they are the American League champions right now. Okay. No big deal. Yeah, I'm not sure if you've heard
Where
of Carlos
did that
Correa.
come from? I never even heard of those dudes. And they are lighting it up on the mound. I'm excited for the Astros. Man, I think they can win this thing.
Yeah, I think we could too, man. Super pumped.
The Braves are kind of an interesting story. Shayna, our DFW managing editor, is a Braves fan. And, you know, this Braves team is kind of a weird team, right? Only 88 wins on the season, had a losing record going into the All-Star break. And, you know, they come through and beat, you know, one of the hot teams in the Dodgers. And it's going to be an interesting series indeed. You got the pride and joy of Houston because, as we know, the Texans and Rockets haven't been doing very hot the last few years. So the pride and joy of Houston is the Astros, and let's see if they can come in clutch. Of course, you know, I had to be a little salty and wear my Rangers hat today for you, Scott. So, you know, just doing that. But, yeah, it should be a good series indeed. Scott, are they going to get their second championship, do you think?
Mala, whenever you're typing, go on mute. Sorry,
I don't like to. I'm always working, bro. I'm breaking stories.
I guess so. That's why you need to go to VYPE.com. Go check it out. Mal, breaking news.
Right.
Sign up for VYPE Insider while you're at it.
We got some good inside stuff coming up really, really quick.
But, Scott, let's get back to you real quick. Astros, are they winning it all?
Absolutely. Astros, I'm saying Astros in 6. Braves are a good team. I think I might have preferred the Dodgers. Yes, they might have been the better team on paper, but they were pretty injury depleted. I think that's part of the reason why the Braves were able to get past them. But, hey, you face who's in front of you. You know, the Dodgers, Max Scherzer didn't go in Game 6. Max Muncy, he got hurt the day before the playoffs started. They had all these injuries and then the Trevor Bauer situation. So the Dodgers kind of limped their way into the CS. But, you know, kudos to the Braves. They took care of business. And I'm excited for the Astros because we can – beat the Braves, who were our mortal enemies in the late 90s and early 2000s. So, I'm ready.
Tons of storylines.
You weren't even born then. Scott. Bro.
Matt, how old were you back in the 90s?
And Glavine and Chipper Jones. And
Andrew Jones? Yeah, man, I know all those guys.
I
Such
I am younger than
dynamic, though, like when you talk about kind of like maybe his just back in the past, because as we all know, Astros were in the National League, you know, back in those days. So I think there was they pointed to what I know. I didn't watch a lot of the playoffs, but I know on one of them they were showing that rivalry. I think when it became obvious the Braves were about to win it, you know, that what was it, the NLCS for between the Braves and the Astros or something like that that they played in. So definitely going to be a good series indeed. But let's get to while we're here today. That's some Texas high school football, especially in the Houston area. We had some great games this past week, and we have some great games this past upcoming week, I should say. Matt, any of the games this past week stand out to you? I'm looking at the score now, and you know, you have Cypress Woods beating Cypress Park, which was probably one of the bigger ones to really, you know, look at as far as wins there. But I'm going to turn it over to you. What do you think about the past week of Texas high school football in Houston?
Very strange. Okay, here's 2 games. Well, here's 3 games. Cy Park loses to Cy Woods. Laying an egg to Cy Woods. I don't get that, number one. Number two, Langham wins by 1 over Cy Ranch. So the Cy Fair ISD kind of got topsy-turvy this weekend. And then C.E. King, we've been beating the drum for C.E. King, but then C.E. King runs into a murderer's row of Atascocita, and they get beat. And then they get beat by North Shore, 17-0. That North Shore defense is dirty. And C.E. King is very physical, but North Shore just showed who is the bully on the block as usual. They're just right down the street from each other, and Coach Fitzhenry used to coach on John Kay's staff, blah, blah, blah. North Shore doing North Shore things. And then now North Shore plays Atascocita, who will be out without their quarterback, of course, for the rest of the season. So I think North Shore could bump up in the power rankings because that's number 3 playing number 4 in the city of Houston. Pretty big game this weekend.
Yeah, and I think we talked about this last week. I think their game against C.E. King kind of proved it. This North Shore team's going to go as far as their defense takes them. I mean, 17-0 victory. Defense puts the shutout. Offense only allows 17 points. Definitely puts a blow on this game coming up, though, with Gavin Sessions. I believe that's his name, if I'm not mistaken, for Atascocita being out for the rest of the year. Definitely, that was going to be a great game. Now, you kind of, I mean, obviously, when your field general goes out for the rest of the year, puts a damper on such a good year for Atascocita. Who knows? Maybe the backup will come in and surprise, but on paper, just sets up nicely for North Shore now heading into playoffs. Scotty, I want to turn it over to you real quick. Did you see any games in your that popped up to you that were very surprising?
Wait, before we move on, what happened to Gavin Sessions? Why is he out for the year?
He was injured 2 weeks ago, and they thought they could get him back, but he's not coming back.
Is it an ACL?
And that's a big deal as it relates to injury report in the city of Houston because, that's a team that could have, made a pretty nice run in the postseason, and they still can. Because, Coach Stump does an amazing job with quarterbacks over there. So, but they're going to have to go young. Show enough. Yeah,
Josh is a big believer because Craig Stump, if I'm not mistaken, he's a big believer in 2-year quarterbacks. So and quarterbacks tend to excel better in their second year in his system. So this was potentially the breakout year for Gavin Sessions, and he was having that, leading Atascocita to a great record, beating Allen, most notably in week 3 or 4 in Allen Stadium. So, yeah, tough break for Atascocita. I didn't realize that. But Josh, to answer your original question, one of the games that stuck out to me was a beatdown of Stratford Spartans defeating Side Creek in an impressive fashion. Stratford is currently undefeated on the year, and Side Creek was one of those teams that could have snuck up on them and potentially a dark horse for that district title. Stratford put really the city of Houston, in my opinion, on notice. Under the radar team still, but man, undefeated, rocking and rolling, and they have a big matchup this week against Jersey Village, which is the quasi-district championship.
Yeah, very.
So that's number 5 versus number 7 in our upcoming rankings. If Stratford wins, I mean, the job that Todd Rankin has done over there, they could be the story of Houston. Of course, you've got, Katy, Westfield, North Shore, but what he's done at Stratford could be kind of the most unique story in the city of Houston because they got it rolling over there.
Yeah, that one's
also, how about
go ahead,
how
Scott.
about Klein Forest getting their first district win in 4 or 5 years, taking down Tomball Memorial. They got the swag over there. Now they're getting wins in the win column. Big shouts to the Klein Forest Golden Eagles. Malatesta's alma mater.
Hey, also, they had a viral video. If you haven't checked it out, it's awesome. Coach Jonathan Wilson, I think it's on our Twitter. He said, hey, when we win our first district game, I'm going to shave my head. And he lived up to that, and his players shaved his head on Facebook Live, and it's hilarious.
I think I can pull that up, but we'll worry about that later. But, yes, it is on our Twitter page. Definitely check it out. Let's see if I can get it up here real quick. I have to work all these little angles here with I got monitoring 4 computers at once here. Let's see here. Oh, here we go. Here it
Yeah,
is.
Josh Cook did a good story on that. That's on VYPE.com. Go check it out. Oh,
Yeah,
look at
there
that.
it is. Yeah, I caught that Saturday morning, and I know what's crazy is, Jonathan Wilson played for Klein Forest. He was a receiver there, a recruited guy, and then he ended up going to Kansas, and then he had been an assistant, I believe most recently at Klein Oak. Yeah, he was at Klein Oak. And Lance Alexander is the principal at Klein Forest and really wanted to hire somebody young that could keep the kids in that Klein Forest school, meaning they were going other places. And they got the guy, young coach, good energy. You can see it right here. You watch the video. Really fun dude. And hey, they've got 5 wins on the season already, which is, that's their best total in years.
Yeah, and I think doing fun stuff like that, it's good for a program when you're trying to build something up, right? You get the kids a little hype, a little incentive, if you will, and definitely good on him and good on the program. Love to see that going in that direction.
Josh Dubb, book it. When we get our 100,000th Twitter follower, I'm shaving my head.
All right,
You
Scott.
heard it here.
Scott, that knows what you. That knows. Hey, let's go create a bunch of fake accounts and just start subscribing. 70,000 fake email accounts. There you go. You heard it here first. Folks, you heard it here first. 100,000 Twitter followers. Matt Malatesta will shave his head. Let's get that done by tomorrow. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I'm sexy, dog. I'm sexy.
Matt, will your hair grow back if you shave it?
It might even grow back more.
I love it.
Have more hair.
Oh man, that's.
We need to clip that.
It's saved. It's saved on records. Hey, 1 year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, whenever we get 100,000 followers, people, he's shaving his head. It's in the video world. You can't delete that. So, let's move on to this week ahead. This week ahead is huge when it comes to the Houston area and just what it means for just the districts and who's going to win and stuff like that. Maybe outside of Tasmania and North Shore, which seems less so than it would have a few weeks ago. What are some of these games that people should be paying attention to in the Houston area, Matt?
Well, I don't want to take away from the story I have coming out right now because, it's going to be a VYPE insider story, but it really breaks down who's going to be going Division I and Division II in the postseason as our crystal ball comes together. So there are some kind of key games this weekend, and everybody's like, what's going to happen to Katy? Katy's going D2, okay? Tompkins is the largest school in the district. They're in the playoffs. Comes down to Seven Lakes. Seven Lakes plays Maid Creek this weekend. I don't think Maid Creek has won a district game yet. If they win that game, they're in. Because in the last week, they played Cinco Ranch, who plays Morton Ranch this weekend. So, anyways, long story short, Seven Lakes is going to be in the postseason, pushing Katy to D2.
That's just amazing to think of. And what's funny is Westlake most likely is going D2 as well. So again, we talked about this most of the year. It could be, Katy and Westlake in that semifinal matchup. Of course, it all depends. We still don't know the status of Cade Klubnik if he's coming back and what's that going to do for Westlake. So lots of quarterback injuries on the really good teams fighting for spots this year. So definitely something to look forward to as playoffs come about. Scott, do you see anything on this week's schedule that, besides maybe that, I know we talked about Stratford, Jersey Village coming up, any of these games that are must watch in the Houston area?
I'm looking at the schedule right now. I mean, nothing really. There's some good DFW matchups and San Antonio matchups, like McKinney Boyd versus McKinney. You have a Converse Judson taking on Cibolo Steel. There are not as many in the Houston area yet. Shadow Creek versus Pearland is interesting. Hey, Matt, who's the TNS game of the week this week? That's Cy Park versus Cy Ranch, correct? Both teams coming off some losses.
That's the district title as well, which is kind of cool. You're right, though. Those two teams are coming off losses. They're both 4-1 the district. They're both getting in the playoffs. Um, Cy Park will be a D2 and Cy Ranch will be a D1, but it'll be interesting to see who can kind of bounce back from that, because they were just dominating, or Cy Park was just dominating. And I was just kind of surprised that they ended up losing to Cy Woods, because we had Cy Woods a couple of weeks ago against Bridgeland, and they were good, but Bridgeland kind of handled them. I think the other storyline is Connor Wigman. What's Wigman? Where's Wigman? What's he going to do? Is he coming back? I don't know, but I think he is. I think he's going to be coming back in the next, if not this week, but next, to get ready for the postseason.
Right. Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, they're as we talked about, the three highest recruited quarterbacks in the state entering this season. Quinn Ewers goes off to Ohio State. Wigman and Klubnik are both not playing. So I'm also interested, Matt, does your crystal ball talk anything about spring? Are they going to go D1 versus D2?
Great question, Scott. Scott, riveting question. They're both going D2. Or no, they're both. Here's what's not fair. Westfield and Spring are going D1. The Woodlands will have to play Spring.
Oh,
as they did last
probably
year.
First round matchup,
in the first
right?
round of the playoffs.
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting quarterback matchup, though, right? With you got Bishop Davenport versus maybe Metalier. I probably got to give the edge to Spring just because I think they have a few more weapons than the Woodlands does. But hey, the Woodlands, as I was telling early on you can go back and check the episodes. Woodlands seems to play up or down to their competition, and so I fully expect the Woodlands to give Spring a really good game in the first round matchup.
100%. I think they're a year older. I think they have a better defense than last year, and they have more weapons on offense, especially running the ball. Their offensive line is much better and bigger. So I think it's going to be that's probably the best first-round playoff game possibly in the state of Texas.
Oh, no doubt about it. I mean, you talk about both teams that could easily make a deep playoff run if they weren't playing each other in the first round. So sometimes playoffs aren't fair and they're cruel that way when you see that kind of matchup in the first round. Scott, let's go back to you one more time. Any other games that we as a viewer or a fan should be aware of?
There are some traditional matchups that I think are this week. Like, for example, you have Fort Bend Travis versus Fort Bend Elkins. You have Katy Taylor versus Katy High School. Those are traditional matchups that these schools just don't really like each other. I don't think that there's as much – like with Katy and Katy Taylor, I fully expect Katy to beat Taylor. They just don't like each other. So there are a lot of matchups like that within the districts and school districts and playoff districts and whatnot that don't necessarily are going to implicate playoffs or playoff seeding. But in those small communities, those matchups still matter, like a Summer Creek versus Humble, matchups like that won't necessarily grab the attention of the media, but are still really good matchups within their communities.
Matt, how about you? Any last games that you want to mention before we get out of here today?
This might be a shocker to y'all, but Spring Woods plays Northbrook. And those communities are literally 2 miles from each other. And that's, like what Scott was saying, it's just a neighborhood battle. And it's kind of cool to see that. Finally, another really big game for the district title that we haven't talked about is Shadow Creek playing Pearland. And that's good. That's a big one. And that game could be the tightest game that there is as it relates to these district final or district deciding games. That's a really interesting game between two pretty good teams. Shadow Creek, of course, the newcomer who, won state a couple of years back. Pearland had been both teams have won state in, the past 10 to 12 years, which is kind of cool. And now they're in the same district.
I have one that stuck out to me, Matt, and I want to get your opinion on this. How about Lamar taking on Heights, an HISD matchup? We talked a lot about last year Tompkins taking down Katy. A equally as big accomplishment was Heights taking down Lamar, beating their 70-something game district win streak too. That's another one to keep an eye on in the HISD realm. Lamar versus Heights. Does Lamar, and Matt, what do you think? Does Lamar get revenge and take down Heights this week?
And that was a tremendously close game last year. Yes, it's going to be Lamar all the way. They've got, if you look at the revenge games, you had Spring Westfield won big. You had Katy versus Tompkins. Katy wins big. I think Lamar wins big to get revenge on the Heights from last season.
Well, a lot of games in the Houston area this week with big district and playoff implications, so be sure to tune in. We got a big slate on our VYPE Live broadcast, so definitely check those out. Before we go, Matt mentioned it, and so definitely, if you're not already, it's coming out. Is your crystal ball coming out today, Matt?
I'm going to probably push it tomorrow, Wednesday. Just give me one more day to sleep on it, But no, it'll be out tomorrow, leading up to this Thursday's slate and throughout the weekend.
And that will, of course, be one of our VYPE Insider articles. So you'll want to become a member to check that out. $2.99 a month, or if you pay it all up front, it comes down to $1.99 a month. So a little bit of savings for you if you make that one lump sum payment. And you get things like this. You'll get to see Matt's crystal ball projections as far as who's going Division I, who's going Division II and 6A. Definitely do not want to miss that. Before we get out of here, of course, I got to bring it back to my man Scott to let you guys know where you can go to check out all this great content.
VYPE is everywhere, so go to VYPE.com. Check it out. We just talked about the VYPE Insider. You don't want to miss that. You can follow us on our social media channels at VYPE Houston on Instagram and Twitter, at VYPE Texas on Facebook. Content dropping daily, almost hourly. We're all over the place. Mala, Josh, Silva, the rest of the VYPE team crushing it. So we're having a lot of fun there. So be sure to follow us there. Click to this YouTube channel, and you can find us on the podcast version, which I'll be uploading later today on there too. So go check us out. Playoffs are right around the corner. It's crazy to think. Like, who would have thought? So you blink twice, and it's going to be Christmas and state championship time. So there's going to be a lot of content, a lot of great stuff coming down the pipe.
Great stuff indeed. And, of course, Matt will be on the call this Thursday. Who are the teams again, Matt?
Cypress Park plays Cy Ranch for the district. What is that? 16 6A championship.
There you go. You do not want to miss that. Matt will be on the call there. We will be back tomorrow. We'll have probably 2 shows tomorrow. I think we're going to have the St. Pius football show with Craig Cranfield. And the VYPE Coaches Corner VYPE podcast will probably come out Thursday. I probably won't have a show Thursday. We're working on that because me and Scott are going to be in San Antonio for a VYPE campus photo shoot. But until then, we will be back tomorrow. And, of course, as always, we will see you at the games.